I thought bartending was just a temp job to pay the bills, but that place unlocked who I really am. They said New York City would chew me up and spit me out. Jokes on them, it chewed me up, swallowed me whole, and turned me into someone I never knew I could be. I took the job at Velvet Jack's because I was broke, tired, and one missed rent payment away from getting kicked out of my 4th-floor walk-up in Queens. I wasn't chasing dreams, I wasn't finding myself, I was just trying to stay alive in a city that charged $16 for a salad and called it lunch. Bartending at a queer bar wasn't some poetic rite of passage. It was a job. Or so I thought. Velvet Jack's was tucked into a narrow street in the East Village, hidden behind a battered green awning that hadn't been cleaned since the Obama administration. The name glowed faintly in neon purple, buzzing like it was trying to remember how to stay alive. Just like me. I walked in on a rainy Wednesday evening in March. My sneakers squished on the sticky floor, the air smelled like tequila and citrus-scented cleaning spray, and the manager, a drag queen named Madame Regina who looked like she could rip your heart out and sell it on eBay, glanced at me up and down like she was measuring me for a coffin. "You ever bartended before?" she asked, lips not moving much through her matte plum lipstick. "Yeah," I lied. "Good," she said. "Lie well. You'll fit in." And that was how it started. At first, I kept my head down. Mixed drinks, wiped counters, tried to look busy. But Velvet Jack's had a pulse of its own. It was loud, raw, messy, and weirdly beautiful. People came there to breathe when the outside world smothered them. To scream when silence became a prison. To kiss without looking over their shoulders. And then there was him. Or them. Depends on the night. Their name was Kai. I remember the first time I saw them. It was a Friday night and the bar was packed. The kind of night where sweat clings to every surface and people shout just to hear their own thoughts. I was elbow deep in a bucket of ice, trying to refill the bin when I heard a voice that cut through the chaos like silk through static. "Hey, new kid. Make me something that tastes like rebellion but goes down smooth." I turned, and there they were leaning on the bar, a smirk playing at the corners of their lips, eyes lined with silver glitter. Their hair was buzzed on one side and curled wildly on the other. They wore a sheer mesh top over a binder, tattoos peeking out like secrets half told. "I don't know what rebellion tastes like," I said, reaching for the shaker. "Exactly," Kai replied. "Surprise me." I did. I mixed mezcal, elderflower, lime, and a dash of hell if I know. It was probably disgusting. But they drank it like it was holy. After that, Kai started coming in every Friday. And I started showing up for more than just a paycheck. I never meant to fall in love with someone like them. Or anyone, really. My whole life, I'd been playing a part one never auditioned for: the straight, dependable, invisible guy. I wore hoodies like armor, made jokes to deflect, and never let anyone see the cracks. But Kai didn't ask. Kai saw. They called me out on it one night after closing. The bar was empty except for the two of us and the sound of Billie Holiday playing low from the jukebox. "You always pretend like you're on the outside of everything," Kai said, twirling an empty glass. "Like life's a party you're bartending, not invited to." I blinked. "Isn't it?" "No," they said. "You're too scared to walk into the middle. But I've seen you look at people like you're dying to dance." I didn't respond. Couldn't. The truth sat heavy in my chest like a secret I'd swallowed years ago and forgotten how to throw up. Kai leaned closer, their voice dropping. "What are you so afraid of?" I wanted to laugh. Or run. Or disappear into the bar's shadowy corners. But instead, I whispered, "Everything." And for the first time, someone didn't flinch. Didn't look away. They just nodded. "Okay," Kai said. "Then let's start with something small." And they kissed me. Not a fireworks kiss. Not a movie kiss. A real kiss. Soft. Certain. Like an invitation. Like the start of something I couldn't name yet. The weeks that followed felt like walking barefoot across glass while smiling. Kai and I didn't label things. We just existed in glances, in whispered jokes, in the way their knee would bump mine behind the bar when no one was looking. I started going home smelling like citrus and sweat and something warmer I couldn't describe. But outside of Velvet Jack's, the world still expected me to be someone else. My brother called to ask why I never came home anymore. My mom sent a birthday card with a note about finding a nice girl someday. I smiled and nodded and shoved myself into the old skin every time I left the bar. One night, after a particularly bad shift, some finance bro had thrown a drink at Kai for refusing to serve him. We sat on the curb, bruised and quiet. Kai lit a cigarette and offered me one. I didn't smoke, but I took it anyway. "Why do you still pretend?" they asked. "Not here. I know here you're real. But out there." I stared at the streetlight flickering above us. "Because out there, I'm afraid real isn't safe." Kai nodded. "Real never is. But fake'll kill you slower." That was the first time I let myself cry in front of someone since I was 13. I don't know when everything changed. I just know it did. Maybe it was the night I called my mom and told her I was queer. Maybe it was the night I saw Kai singing drunk karaoke in a sequin dress and realized I'd never felt more attracted to anyone in my life. Or maybe it was when a kid came into the bar barely 21, shaking and said, "I heard this was a place where people like me existed." And I looked him in the eye and said, "Yeah. It is." Suddenly, the job that was supposed to be temporary felt sacred. Velvet Jack's wasn't just a bar. It was a lighthouse. A stage. A mirror. It was the first place I ever saw myself clearly. And it was the first place I let myself be seen. The night everything cracked open started like any other, shots, sweat, and shout singing to Britney Spears. It was Pride weekend, the kind of weekend where Velvet Jack's felt more like a temple than a bar. People danced on tables. Glitter was in the air like oxygen. Someone wore a full leather horse costume. I don't know why. I didn't ask. Kai was electric that night. They wore a silver jumpsuit with a plunging neckline and eyeliner sharp enough to cut through the lies I still told myself. They danced like nobody was watching and kissed me like everyone was. I should have felt fearless. But I didn't. When Kai pulled me into the back room between shifts, breathless and buzzing, they said it softly, like the words might bruise if said too loud. "I love you." I froze. Because I did, too. But I didn't say it back. Not then. Not yet. Kai smiled like they understood. Like they always understood. But something in their eyes shuddered. Just a little. "I don't need it back," they whispered. "I just needed it out." And then they kissed my forehead like goodbye. A week passed. Then 2. Kai didn't show up at the bar. I called. No answer. I messaged. No reply. I told myself maybe they were busy. Maybe they were out of town. But in the pit of my gut, I knew the truth. I'd broken something. And I didn't know how to fix it. Velvet Jack's felt colder without them. The lights buzzed harsher. The drinks felt heavier in my hands. Customers noticed. Madame Regina noticed. "You look like a puppy that bit its own tail," she said one night as I was restocking mixers. "I think I messed it up." She lit a cigarette inside the bar strictly against policy and waved her hand like she could smoke the sadness away. "Of course you did. That's what love is for." I stared at her. "That's not helpful." "That's because I'm not trying to help," she said. "I'm trying to tell you the truth." And then she added, with an edge of actual softness, "Go fix it, kid. If you wait for the perfect moment, you'll wait forever." I found Kai at Prospect Park, sitting on a bench with a sketchbook in their lap and headphones in. I didn't plan what I'd say. I just walked up and stood there like a stray cat waiting to be noticed. They looked up. Took out their earbuds. I said the only thing that felt true. I was scared. Kai didn't respond right away. Then they said, I wasn't. I know, I said. That's what terrified me. I sat down next to them, not touching. Not assuming. I've never said it to anyone, I admitted. Not out loud. Not really. Not where it counted. Kai looked at me. Not like I was broken. Not like I was unforgivable. Just waiting. And so I took a breath. And I said, I love you. It was quiet. Not a grand gesture. Not a rom-com climax. But it was mine. Kai smiled small, real. Good, they said. Now say it again. Louder. And I did. 3 times. Until the words didn't feel like fear anymore. Until they felt like freedom. We didn't become perfect after that. Love didn't solve everything. It just made the mess worth staying in. Kai moved in 3 months later. We fought over stupid things: laundry, dishes, which side of the bed was the cold side. But we also slow danced in the kitchen at 2 a.m., binge-watched bad reality TV, and painted our living room a hideous shade of green just because it made us laugh. I came out to my brother over Thanksgiving dinner. He said he'd suspected since I was 13 and wore eyeliner to a school play. My mom cried, but she said she loved me. That she always would. That was enough. Velvet Jacks kept beating on. And I stayed. Not because I had no other options. But because I finally understood what that place meant. It wasn't just a bar. It was the first place I was honest. And being honest, being seen, that changes you. A year later, we threw a fundraiser at the bar for a queer youth shelter in Brooklyn. The place was packed wall to wall. Drag queens did death drops on the bar. Kai painted a mural live on stage. I gave a short speech, shaking, sweaty about finding home in places you never expected. Afterward, a young guy came up to me. 19, maybe 20. Nervous hands. Wide eyes. He said, I used to think people like me didn't make it past high school. I looked at him. I saw myself. I saw Kai. I saw everyone who ever walked through Velvet Jacks looking for something, even if they didn't know what. You made it here, I said. That counts. He smiled. It wasn't big. But it was real. Some nights, I still think about that first shift. That scared version of me who thought bartending was just a gig. Who thought queerness was something you hid in the dark. He would have never believed what came next. That this job, this bar, would give him love. Would give him home. Would give him the courage to be. It was a Tuesday night in mid-October when everything shifted again. The bar was quiet, too quiet. Off-season quiet. The post-Pride, pre-holiday lull. The kind of night when only the regulars came in and the jukebox repeated the same indie song 4 times in an hour. The bar felt like it was catching its breath, like all the glitter and shouting had faded into silence just long enough to hear your own thoughts again. Kai was working on a painting in the back room, their hands smeared with blue and gold. They had an art show coming up, and it was all they could think about. I admired them for that, how they could take a single image in their head and birth it into something bold, messy, and beautiful. I was wiping down glasses when the door opened, and someone stepped inside. At first, I didn't look up. Just another regular, I figured. But something made me pause. A stillness. A coldness. When I glanced up, my stomach dropped. It was my father. I hadn't seen him in almost 3 years. Not since the last time we fought, when he accused me of getting caught up in all that rainbow nonsense and called New York a pit for the lost. He stood in the doorway in his worn brown jacket and work boots, looking completely out of place beneath the pink neon glow. I froze. He scanned the room, confusion on his face. Then he saw me and his expression didn't soften. If anything, it hardened. I walked out from behind the bar slowly, like approaching a wild animal. My voice felt stuck somewhere between my chest and throat. "Dad?" He nodded once. "Wasn't sure it was really you. What are you doing here?" "Work conference," he said flatly. "Tried to call. Number didn't work." I didn't know what to say. The air between us was thick, stiff with old wounds. I gestured to the bar. "Want to sit?" He hesitated. Then, slowly, he did. I poured him a bourbon neat, like he used to drink. Neither of us spoke for a minute. The silence was almost worse than shouting. Finally, he asked, "So this is your life now?" I looked around. The bar. The mismatched stools. The pride flags. The photos of past drag nights. The glitter that never quite left the corners of the floor. "Yeah," I said. "This is it." He nodded, almost to himself. "Then, does your mom know?" I laughed short and bitter. "She's known longer than I have." He grunted. "You always were soft." There it was. The punch I didn't realize I'd been bracing for. I didn't flinch this time. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I'm strong in ways you'll never understand." He looked at me, really looked for the first time in years. And something in his eyes flickered. Not approval. Not acceptance. But awareness. Maybe that was all I'd ever get. Maybe that was enough. "I should go," he said, standing up. "You came all the way here just to tell me you disapprove?" "No," he said, voice lower now. "I came to see if you were lost." And? He looked around the bar again. At me. At the photo behind the register, me and Kai at last year's Halloween drag night, both in full makeup, both laughing like the world couldn't touch us. "You look found," he said. Then he walked out. I didn't cry. I just stood there, glass still in my hand, and let the moment settle in. Kai came out from the back a minute later, paint still drying on their fingers. "Everything okay?" they asked. I looked at them, at their paint-flecked skin, their patient eyes, the gentle way they always moved through the world like it deserved softness, and I thought, this is what okay looks like. "Yeah," I said. "Everything's finally okay." The months passed. Kai's art show was a success. Their work sold out in 2 days. One of their paintings even ended up in a local gallery. I helped them hang it. It was abstract, all swirling reds and soft yellows, but when I looked at it long enough, I could see us in it. Or maybe I just wanted to. I started taking classes, night classes, at first. Psychology. Gender studies. Queer history. Things I used to think were useless when I was pretending to be someone else. Now, they felt like keys. Velvet Jack's was changing, too. Madame Regina was retiring, well, retiring in the sense that she was moving to Palm Springs to open a queer cafe and host bingo nights. She called it her Sunset Diva era. She handed the bar over to me. "You're the heart now," she said, slipping the keys into my palm. "Try not to screw it up." I stood there for a long time after she left. Just me and the bar and the ghosts of every version of myself I'd ever tried to kill off. Then I opened up shop. It was a cold December evening when we held our first open mic night under my name. Kai read a poem. I stood behind the bar, smiling so hard it hurt. Then someone stepped on stage and sang a slow, aching version of True Colors, and I realized I wasn't just watching someone else bloom, I was blooming, too. After the song ended, the room went quiet. Then applause. Then tears. Then drinks. Then laughter. That was Velvet Jack's. That was life. Later that night, when we were closing up, Kai slid their hand into mine and said, "You know, I think I fell in love with you twice." Twice. I teased. That's greedy. The first time was when you made me that terrible drink. It was experimental. Kai grinned. And the second was tonight. Watching you up there. You've changed. I hope so. No, they said. You haven't changed. You've become. I kissed them, then soft, grateful. We turned off the lights. Locked the doors. And walked home. Together. Spring came early that year. The air smelled like possibility, and the sidewalks of New York, usually so cold and rushed, felt almost forgiving. I'd lived in the city long enough to know better than to romanticize it. But something had shifted. Or maybe it was me who had. Velvet Jack's was thriving under new rhythms. We added a community board near the entrance, job postings, queer book clubs, open therapy groups. A young barista from down the block started hosting coming out karaoke once a month. It sounded cheesy, but it wasn't. It was raw. Beautiful. Brave. People came out through music. Through drunken tears. Through laughter. One night, a middle-aged woman in a power suit sang "Born This Way" and sobbed halfway through the second verse. She wasn't crying because she was embarrassed. She was crying because she was free. We handed her a shot and wrapped her in hugs. That's what we did at Velvet Jack's. We didn't just serve drinks. We witnessed people. We held space for them when they couldn't hold it for themselves. I got an email one morning from the kid who told me, a year before, that he never thought people like him made it past high school. He was graduating from college. Going into social work. He wanted to start a queer youth center in his hometown. Said Velvet Jack's had shown him what safety looked like. I cried in the back office while balancing inventory. Kai found me there, blinking through my tears, a bottle of grenadine still in my hand. "You okay?" I nodded. "Someone just told me I changed their life." They tilted their head, studying me. "Is that really a surprise?" "Yeah," I said honestly. "It still is." Kai got invited to speak at a gallery opening in Chicago. They were nervous about it, but I wasn't, not really. I knew what they were made of. I'd seen it on bar stools and in broken bathrooms, through bad breakups and burnout and heartbreak. I'd watched them pour everything they had into their art and into me. So when I stood at JFK that morning, holding their suitcase and smiling like a sap, I told them what I never got tired of saying. "I'm proud of you." Kai grinned. "Even when I leave socks in the freezer and blame the cat." "Especially then." They kissed me at the gate. Not like a goodbye. Like a promise. And I watched them walk towards something bigger than either of us had imagined, remembering all the times they'd stood in that same place for me. While they were gone, I kept the bar going. I handled plumbing disasters and a group of bachelorette parties that tried to use the stripper pole for their own choreography. They failed. I hosted trivia nights. Cleaned puke. Repaired the espresso machine. I also got invited to speak at a panel at NYU about queer business ownership, community spaces, and turning survival into sanctuary. Their words, not mine. When I stood in front of that room full of students and faculty, I remembered the version of me who would have run from that moment. Who would have laughed it off. Deflected. But I didn't do that anymore. I stood in the truth of who I was. Who I had become. I told them the story of a scared kid who took a temp job behind a sticky bar and accidentally found the love of his life, a found family, and himself. The room went still when I finished. Then came applause. I didn't need it. But I let it in anyway. Kai came home 3 weeks later, jet-lagged and radiant. I picked them up from the airport with a bouquet of sunflowers and a sign that read, "My favorite star." They cried. I did, too. Back at our apartment, the one we painted together, furnished together, built a whole damn life in, we stayed up all night just talking. About their trip. About my panel. About everything. Around 3 a.m., I looked at them and said, "We're doing it, huh?" Doing what? Living the life we used to think we weren't allowed to have. Kai smiled, that soft half-smile that always undid me. Yeah, they said. Turns out, we were always allowed. We just needed a place to begin. A year passed. Then another. The bar changed like cities do in small, subtle ways. A new bartender joined the team, a trans woman named Lila with the fastest wit and softest heart I'd ever met. We hired a non-binary teen as a barback who told me I reminded them of their older brother in a good way. I felt old and honored at the same time. Kai's career took off. They were showing in multiple states now, sometimes internationally. But they always came home to me. One night, after a particularly exhausting Pride weekend, we lay tangled on our tiny couch, eating cold pizza and watching drag makeup tutorials on YouTube. Kai turned to me suddenly. "I want to marry you." I blinked. "Wait, is that a proposal?" Kai laughed. "I don't believe in proposals. I believe in decisions. Shared ones." "Then yes," I said. 1,000 times, yes. We didn't do a big wedding. We did a block party. Closed off the street outside Velvet Jack's. Set up folding chairs and fairy lights. Drag queens did the officiating. Our chosen family danced until dawn. There were no suits, no dresses, just everyone in what made them feel the most them. I wore a simple shirt Kai had painted on. It had a small heart on the pocket. When I asked what it meant, they said, "That's where you live." I married them at sunset, under a disco ball. And I knew in a way that went deeper than words that I had found the place I belonged. Years later, someone asked me if I missed bartending the way it used to be before it became a business, a responsibility. And I said no. Because it was never just bartending. It was never about the drinks, or the tips, or the music. It was about the people. The cracked, dazzling, ever-changing mosaic of humanity that spilled into Velvet Jack's and taught me how to live. It was about Kai and the night they asked for a drink that tasted like rebellion. It was about every moment I stood behind that bar and chose to show up. Chose to become. Chose to be. And when I look back now at the boy who walked into Velvet Jack's terrified and closeted and pretending to be someone else, I don't pity him. I thank him. Because he walked through the door. And that was the beginning of everything. The end.